Resuming debate, the Honourable Minister for Public Health, or for Health, rather.
Of Bill C-45, an act respecting cannabis, and to amend the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act and the Criminal Code of Canada and other acts. The Standing Committee on Health has now completed its review of the bill and has heard from over 100 witnesses. I want to sincerely thank the committee members for their valuable insight and their thoughtful contributions to the development of this legislation, and a special thanks for their hard work. A number of amendments were adopted by the committee and will now be considered by Parliament. Our government supports these amendments. They include eliminating the proposed 100-centimetre height limit for the cannabis cultivated at home and committed to the regulations of edibles within 12 months of the bills coming into force. Given the transformative nature of the proposed legislation, we also support the amendments made by the committee that will require a review of the law 3 years after it is brought into force. Bill C-45 is grounded in the interest of public health and safety. It is worthy of adoption of this House. Bill C-45 will legalize, strictly regulate, and restrict access to cannabis for Canadians over the age of 18. By legalizing, strictly regulating, and restricting access to cannabis, this law would take profits from the sales of cannabis out of the hands of criminals and organized crime and protect the public health through strict product requirements for safety and quality. Bill C-45 is grounded in protecting public health and would replace the current system, which clearly is not working. Le projet de loi que nous proposons.
The bill that we are proposing is based on protecting people for whom using cannabis represents a significant or more significant risk for their health, which is our youth. Our bill therefore proposes new serious criminal penalties for people who provide cannabis to youth or recruit them to commit cannabis-related offenses. Madam Speaker, because we want to make the public more aware of the risks linked to cannabis, our government has committed to leading an important information campaign as well as an awareness campaign. This campaign will address, above all, teenagers and young adults. It will raise the dangers linked to driving under the influence of cannabis, among other things.
Recommendations of the Task Force on Cannabis Legalization and Regulation, which was led by the Honourable Anne McClellan. As well, on October 20th, I met in Edmonton with health ministers from provinces and territories as we discussed the state of cannabis readiness. I want to assure all of my colleagues that provincial and territorial governments will continue to play a crucial role in ensuring that the health and safety of Canadians, especially young Canadians, when it comes to cannabis. Now, I would like to outline the bill's many strengths in greater detail. Cannabis is the most commonly used illegal substance in Canada. Some 21% of our youth and 30% of our young adults have reported using cannabis within the last year. Scientific evidence shows that the risk from cannabis use are higher for youth than adults. It also shows that the younger someone is when they start using cannabis, and the more often they use it, the greater the risk to their health. Les faits sont clairs, Madame la Présidente.
The facts are clear. Many of our youth have access to cannabis, even more so than in other developed countries. That's the reason why our government is proposing an approach based on public health. It's important to say it again. Our government is not in favor of cannabis and is not attempting to facilitate access for youth. Quite the contrary. Our government, above all, is trying to protect our youth through a strict framework around cannabis. As I've already mentioned, too many young people already have access to cannabis more easily than even to cigarettes. Let's look at what's been done over the last 30 years to reduce smoking in the country. The government controls access to tobacco and discourages its use through different methods. Regulatory framework. Measures to control advertising and promotion. Taxation, as well as warnings about the risks of using tobacco. Over time, this approach has significantly reduced the rate of use of cigarettes. The percentage of young users went from 27% in 1985 to 10% in 2015. That is one of the reasons we are integrating the lessons learned from the fight against smoking to our approach on cannabis. On the one hand, the bill stipulates that no person under 18 years old may possess cannabis. This position reflects the recommendation of the working group. This is an age limit that could protect our teenagers because defining an age limit that is too high would, in our opinion, contribute to maintaining in place the illegal market. The bill, however, outlines that provinces and territories may raise the legal minimum age for purchase and sale. On the other hand, the bill will protect our youth by strongly restricting advertising regarding the use of cannabis. It will be prohibited that promotion be considered attractive to youth. It will also be forbidden to use packaging or labeling that could be attractive to youth. The means of promoting cannabis will be limited to communicating information to consumers. Once again, this information should not be presented in a way that could attract the attention of our youth. As you will understand, these measures will reduce both access and attractiveness for cannabis among youth. We know, however, that it is less likely for the youth to consider that cannabis is an important risk for their health. That is why we are also going to make sure that we provide to Canadian men and women information about cannabis in order for them to be able to talk about the risks of using it with their children.
Madam Speaker, educate and support adults in making informed and responsible choices that minimize the risks of using cannabis, including the dangers related to drug-impaired driving. That is why our government announced that we will invest $46 million in public education and awareness and surveillance, and that work has already begun. Our government will continue to provide leadership, invest resources, and work collaboratively on public education and other levels of government and key partners across the country. Bill C-45 also established a legal and quality-controlled supply of cannabis for sale to adults. The legalization establishes a number of clear rules to protect consumers and set national standards and controls for cannabis products. Under the proposed legislation and its regulations, the federal government would establish industry-wide rules on the types of products that would be allowed for sale in Canada, including rules governing how they are to be produced, tested, labeled, packaged, and shipped. We will build on Canada's existing regulations and system of licensed production of cannabis for medical purposes, which has been recognized as one of the best systems in the world. Let me assure my colleagues that we are also looking at others who have already done this and that we are working closely with them. We are having ongoing conversations with other jurisdictions, such as Colorado and Washington states, to learn from their experiences and build upon the lessons that they have learned. We want to get this right. Putting in place a sound, effective system of regulated access to cannabis will require cooperation and collaboration from all jurisdictions, Madam Speaker. Under this bill, the federal government would be responsible for establishing and maintaining a comprehensive and consistent national framework to regulate the production of cannabis. For their part, provinces and territories could license and oversee the distribution of sale of cannabis. Together with municipalities, they could also tailor certain rules in their own jurisdictions and enforce them through a range of tools, such as tickets, for example. We have worked closely with provinces and territories and our counterparts to ensure that their input has been heard and taken into account. Earlier this week, we published a detailed consultation paper on our proposed approach to regulating cannabis. Over the next 60 days, we will undertake an in-depth discussion with the provinces and territories, Indigenous representation, and also stakeholders. We are also inviting Canadians to submit their feedback online until January 20th, 2018 on everything from licensing to producing to product standards to packaging and labeling.
In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the bill before this House today is designed to respond to the challenges that we are already facing. Our youth have access to cannabis. Our youth are consuming cannabis. And organized crime continues to profit from its unregulated sale. While we are proposing to legalize cannabis, we understand that this is a product whose consumption should not be encouraged, just like alcohol and tobacco. This is why we are taking every step necessary to protect our young people as we propose to legalize cannabis. Today, Madam Speaker, I would call on all of my colleagues to support Bill C-45 at third reading. Thank you.